What we really want to ban is violence and murder and insanity. Now, we don't talk about that, though, because deep in our hearts, each of us knows that violence and murder and insanity are built into the human condition and likely always will be. You know, there are two kinds of animals in this world, predators and prey. No one watches a leopard chase down a gazelle and denies that the gazelle has a right to use its hooves and horns to protect itself from the predator. But there are people in this room tonight and all across the country who would deny that same right to self-defense to other human beings. Such people seem to think that the way to stop the leopard is to cut the horns off of the gazelle, that by somehow making it easier for the predator will simply go away. My friends, this is insane. When you make it easier for the predator, you get more predators. So let's start with the so-called assault weapons, more properly known as semi-automatic rifles. In 2011, the total firearm murders came to 8,583, according to the FBI. Now, during that time, the total murders committed by rifles, all rifles, not just semi-automatic rifles, were 323. That's 3% of all murders. Hammers and clubs kill half again as many people as rifles. Hands and feet murder twice as many. And knives kill 5 times more Americans than all rifles combined. Preventable medical errors kill about 98,000 people per year. Medical malpractice kills more than 12 times as many people as are murdered in the U.S. each year. That's more than 300 times the number killed by all rifles, not just the so-called assault rifles. And yet firearms prevent anywhere from 800,000 to over 2 million violent crimes every year. The lowest estimate means that 100 times more violent crimes were prevented with firearms than the total murders committed with firearms. That's 100 times. Now, in October of 2007, Amanda Collins was walking to her car after a night class at the University of Nevada at Reno. Amanda had a concealed carry permit for her 9mm Glock that she carried for self-defense. Unfortunately for Amanda, UNR is, like most college campuses, a gun-free zone. So, like the law-abiding citizen that she is, she did not have her gun with her in this gun-free zone when she was attacked by James Bila. Bila raped her on the UNR campus less than 300 yards from the campus police office. He then walked away, and a few months later, this human predator went on to murder 19-year-old Breonna Dennison. Amanda Collins went on to say, quote, "I know, having been the first victim, that Breonna Dennison would still be alive had I been able to defend myself that night," unquote.
There is no doubt, there is nothing equivocal, there are no ambiguities. What happened on Bloody Sunday was both unjustified and unjustifiable. It was wrong. Lord Savile concludes that the soldiers of the support company who went into the bogside did so as a result of an order which should not have been given by their commander. He finds that on balance the first shot in the vicinity of the march was fired by the British Army. He finds that none of the casualties shot by the soldiers of support company was armed with a firearm. He finds that there was some firing by Republican paramilitaries, but none of this firing provided any justification for the shooting of civilian casualties. And he finds that in no case was any warning given by soldiers before opening fire.
Hello, my name is Aaron Weiss, and I live in the town of Poughkeepsie. I'm a combat veteran of Iraq, and I'm also a law enforcement officer. I attended the Public Safety Committee's last meeting in regards to this resolution, but I didn't say anything because I wanted to hear what everyone else had to say. And I heard some shocking things from some people and some legislators. They said that it took a lot of courage to pass this SAFE Act. Apparently my definition of courage differs from yours. You see, if it was really so courageous a bill and it took so much courage to pass it, then why was it done in the middle of the night when no one could see it or read it? That's not courage. That's a mafia-style sit-down to divvy up what's good for the bosses. Courage is taking the right and true course of action, not the politically expedient one. And anyone who is proud of this law must also be proud of the Patriot Act, the TSA, imprisoning Japanese citizens in World War II, since all these actions were spurred on by emotional fear and rammed through in the name of public safety. Another issue is the insistence of certain people to stand on the graves of dead children and challenge those that disagree to say it to the parents' faces. Well, I, for one, will pick up that gauntlet. First off, why is dead children your battle cry? You didn't say anything about the hundreds of Chicago children being killed, and for some reason you only scream when it happens to wealthy white ones. And yes, I will say to anyone's face, my right is more important than you're dead, because I fought for it firsthand. I washed the blood of my friends out of my Humvee, and I picked up their mangled bodies, and I fought day in and day out. I did more things that you people can't imagine. So yeah, my right trumps your dead. I earned it in blood. I gave up a lot for this country, including my youth, and better men than me gave up a whole lot more, so that all you, myself included, could enjoy the rights that are guaranteed to us in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. And we didn't go through all that to come back home and watch the surrender of what we fought for happen based on the demented actions of a couple madmen. So in closing, I would like to address specifically the legislators we all know who are going to vote against this resolution. I understand you will vote against this resolution based on some misguided sense of the public good. However, as a law enforcement officer, I'm curious to know about your true resolve. Since voting to take away someone's rights is totally different than being asked to enforce it, I want you to consider this. If you support the SAFE Act so wholeheartedly, are you willing to stand with law enforcement members and lead from the front to enforcement? And what I mean by that is if a constituent of yours feels so alienated by this law and the manner in which it was passed that they refuse to comply with it, are you willing to stack up on their front door and go in first? I bet if a clause was in this bill that required you, the elected leadership, our elected leaders, to go in the door first, I bet you would not be so steadfast.
Every time there's a mass shooting, for the next month you'll hear the shooter this, the shooter that, his family this, his life that. But when somebody stops a mass shooting from happening, all you hear is this. Why wouldn't an insecure, unstable young man who believes he's invisible to the world and has nothing to live for, but wants to leave his mark on the world before he goes so that he can validate his life and make the world stand up and take notice of him, not commit a mass shooting? The media practically turns these guys into celebrities overnight. Hell, I take that back. They basically turn them into demigods. Don't believe me? I give you 10 seconds to rattle off the name of the most recent mass shooters in the last decade. If you're able to mention even one name to yourself, that's insane. What's the name of the guy who had a carry permit who tackled the guy who shot Gabrielle Gifford? Name the guy in the mall who had a concealed carry permit and stopped and deterred the guy who shot the mall up in Oregon. Or the name of the person who shot and stopped the kid who tried to shoot up the movie theater a couple of days after Newtown happened. Not one of these people's names are identifiable within 10 seconds, but I'm forced to learn the inner details of these sociopaths' lives who try to amass the highest body count. And get this, then the media steps in and makes themselves experts on gun control and try to vilify anyone who's not for the hijacking of the Second Amendment right. I take that back. Their natural born right as human beings for self-preservation. I'm sick of this. What kind of backward society do we live in where we glorify the sociopath and then demonize the good people who want adequate means of protecting themselves from said sociopaths? This is willful retardation at its finest. And you gawk at the idea of placing armed guards in schools or arming teachers because you don't want the kids going to school surrounded by guns. But you're okay with making these places gun-free zones while admitting in the same breath that we can't completely stop mass shootings. And reality has shown time and time again that obeying a gun-free zone sign is not anywhere on these mass shooters' bucket list. You want to stop mass shootings, and I mean stop them in their tracks? Put people in a position to put these bastards down the moment they open fire or show up intending to do harm. These guys are corner campers. They want an easy body count, not a shootout. You destroy the mass shooter's fantasy real quick by sending bullets in their direction. Right then, the fantasy stops and the reality kicks in, and that's when they take their lives. Then celebrate the heroes who stopped the mass shooter. Let the mass shooter die the same way he lived, as a nobody. Instead of forcing me to watch a guy with orange hair admire his work every time they bring him to court, surrounded by cameras, and watch every move he makes like he's Kim Kardashian. At least I get an endorphin spike when I see her. The whole anti-gun, pro-gun back and forth fight that happens after every mass shooting is like two bird-brained chicks fighting each other over a guy who they thought was their boyfriend, but come to find out he was sleeping with both of them at the same time. And now he's standing there watching them fight each other when they should be fighting him. Fight the bad guy, not each other. This isn't a pro-gun, anti-gun thing. Meet the coward in the fantasy and stop them. And don't glorify them, and they'll cease to be a fantasy. And they'll have to find new ways to make themselves relevant. Taking away guns isn't the answer. It's a feel-good measure because people don't want the responsibility of being responsible for their own safety. They rather believe that the police will be there when we know and they know and the police know they won't. No one wants to fight for the protection. They want the government to do it. They want the police to do it. Because I'll admit, it's scary to think that the only person responsible for your safety is you. But guess what? That's reality. Cops can't always be there. Obama definitely can't be there when your life is on the line or your kids. The people in the best position to stop mass shooters are the people who are there. Give them the means to stop these bastards, and I promise you, all these mass shootings will stop once they realize there's no more free shoots. Instead of trying to save just one kid's life, let's try to save 10 or 12 or 20 and have maybe only one person die, instead of trying to save just one life and 20 die.